Molly Hughes, State Representative. I'm also on the Health Policy Committee. We've had many hearings on this and we will continue to have hearings on this. We're trying to find out exactly what they expect of us. We were told last week, Wednesday morning, that it's going to require $10 million, and they gave us no expense sheets, no cost sheets. Said there are 53 or 56 pages of requirements coming to us, but nobody's seen them yet. So we will go through the hearings one by one, and we're going to have be prepared for the health exchange as it comes. But there's a lot of it that's not that great. I would like to make sure that we cover pre-existing conditions and some other things that were in that very complicated 2,700-page bill from the feds that they're imposing on us. And we have a lot of questions to be asked first before we go forward and know how we're going to pay for this and for the employees to back up the system.
Covered by a federal grant. There's a federal grant that will pay for that.
I don't think it's a debate.
Thank you very much.
Can I answer that on behalf of Willie?
Yes.
All right. So Willie's going to run for Congress, and he supports President Obama's Affordable Health Care Act. And the amazing thing to me, and when we and Willie were talking over breakfast, is that the politicians that are opposing the President Obama's Affordable Health Care Act already have the best health care our financial dollars can buy. Why would they be against every American not having that financial same ability to have that affordable health care? The next thing is, like Marshall Harvey Wright says, President Obama supplied stipulations that the federal government will help underwrite that affordable health care at the state level. There is no reason Americans should be without health care from right of birth. And anybody that is against it is really against what America was based on, or based on free ability to get health care, and all people should be eligible for health care, affordable health care. Thank you.
Right.
My next question is to the circuit court candidates. I see two of them have already been. As a judge, if you're elected to become a judge in the 14th District Court, you have a tool that you call the Michigan Sentencing Guidelines. I know you guys are familiar with that. As a judge, you have the latitude to depart from the minimum sentencing guidelines. In order to do that, you must have substantial and compelling reasons why you would depart from the minimum sentencing guidelines. Could you give this audience some of those substantial and compelling reasons why you depart?
Well, actually, I just saw Judge Graves, whose position is coming open, depart from this just recently, and it was with regard to a case of a lady who was significantly drug addicted woman. She has continually been addicted to prescription medications and cannot get out of the cycle, going to probation, has been drinking, and he actually sat there and said, in Muskegon County, we do not have the programs to help you. We do not have the ability to do it here. And I'm actually going to depart from the guidelines because it was supposed to be county time, and I'm going to actually have to go to prison so that you can get the help that you need. I find that compelling, and I also find that telling with regard to our community. That we don't have the ability here, that we actually have to send people to prison to get help because we don't have it in our community. That is a compelling reason.
I agree with that last comment, and I know both of us support a drug court in Muskegon County as well as a veterans court. We have mental health issues, and some people get sentenced different because of mental health treatment that they need that may not be able to get here, and a veterans court, so I agree with that. As far as giving parameters of when we do it or when we not, that's kind of pushing the envelope a little bit on what we're allowed to talk about, it being specific as to what we would do in a specific case. And it is very fact specific as to the person, the opportunities for that person to be rehabilitated, what's in the community, what's not in the community, and the potential of that person to be rehabilitated. And that is very fact-specific to each individual that comes before us. So I can't give you a broad, sweeping answer as to when I would depart from that and when I wouldn't. Also, there are parameters that our courts have told us that we can't go beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. And my last question is to the...
Well, Mr. Darnell?
I'm sorry.
That's okay, that's all right. Well, what the question was directed at is really this. What aggravating or mitigating circumstances would you consider to be important in a case to depart? Because they've got to be, as Mr. Darnell said, substantial and compelling to depart from those Michigan Supreme Court mandated guidelines. And what you cannot do, what you must not do, is administer cookie cutter justice. And what you're asking a little bit, Mr. Darnell, is to say, what would those mitigating or aggravating circumstances be in a particular case? What you cannot do is say broad sweeping, as Mr. Wells said, broad sweeping reasons. You must pour yourself as a judge into a case and learn about it as much as you can to see that fairness is done. Look, as public servants, we have an obligation, as to the public defender system, as to the Michigan sentencing guidelines, to be fair across the board. Fair to every person that comes before you on an individual case-by-case basis, and that's what the judges got to do. They got to be invested with the right experience to make the right decision.
My last question is to the candidates for county prosecutor. If elected, what criteria or considerations would you use in making the decision to waive or not to waive a juvenile up to adult court for certain specific felony cases? I put down an example, armed robbery. Can you give me some?
Sure. Well, there's certain crimes like murder, armed robbery, rape that gives the prosecutor's office complete discretion whether or not they waive it up to adult court or not. But also the criteria that the office looks at is what is the past history of that particular juvenile? How long have they been in the system? What other crimes have they committed in that system? What sort of programs and rehabilitation efforts has the system made to try and rehabilitate that young man or that young woman? And we lean heavily on the outside agencies that look at that, like the juvenile court probation officers that deal with these juveniles day in and day out. The juvenile court referees and judges get an opportunity to weigh in on this. And so it's kind of a cooperative effort, but ultimately the decision rests with the prosecutor's office. And the office takes that very seriously because we're dealing with young people and their lives. We're dealing with what their future is going to entail, and certainly, if elected as prosecutor, I'm going to take all that into consideration because they are our future.
Mr. Hilson's right. There are several criteria that are determined what can and cannot happen, but I think the important thing is that needs to be looked at is that they are juvenile offenders. What services have they had? What is their history? What's their background? But there's another important element to all that. It's what does the community want to see happen? And most importantly, is the victim of that crime needs to be consulted with to determine to see what they feel might be necessary or not necessary. Is it what they want to see have happen? I don't necessarily believe that there are some cases where if they commit an armed robbery or they commit a carjacking or they commit a rape that it needs to be addressed, but you can't do that in cases with juveniles without at least talking to the victims of those crimes to find out what they think might be the appropriate punishment and talking with the community to find out what they believe might be the appropriate punishment. And to do that without consulting with the victim of that crime to see what they think is proper, I think might be improper on the prosecutor's office part because you have to take everyone into consideration in that part.